perspective as we continue our conversation with Ted McKinney, CEO of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. Enjoy the conversation.
Ted, one last comment on that. I think one thing that we need to do is be educators. Farmers, ranchers, dairy, our ag industry is not solely ag. We are educators, and we need to get into school systems younger and more, so we can bring what is a day in the life of a farmer to the schools. And I think that then all of a sudden you're eating the food that was direct from this local produce. How neat of a story is that?
Yeah. So, couldn't agree more. And it's good you bring that up. In fact, reminds me, before we beat ourselves up too badly, let's look at some resounding successes. Look at FFA and 4-H,
yes,
and now at the collegiate level, Ag Future of America. Manners would be, minorities in ag. Listen, folks, these are fantastic programs. We have great relationships with all of them. So before we beat ourselves up too much, here is our crop of people to at least be first to bat on looking at those opportunities. So I still think it's possible we can get there, but boy, we're probably behind the 8 ball in bringing along the number of people who can assume those farming operations versus that becoming available. We got to get after it. Good point. Thank you, Doug.
Real quick question. Do you have more time to talk, or do you need to go? I want to be respectful of your time. Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, great. We're at time on what we had scheduled, so I wanted to make sure you didn't have somewhere else to go. But so let's transition into that, because I think this is another aspect of that next generation farmer that we're talking about, and even something in our prep that we had talked about, women in agriculture, is when I was graduating from college, I wanted to go back to the farm. It was in the 80s, not a prime time to be able to go back to the farm. But we also had a time in there, in that same line, that we had an exit of the farm kids coming back to the farm. Not because there wasn't an opportunity. It was like, and I don't want to shovel stuff for a living. That's just not fun to me. And when we got into the 80s, or into the 90s, excuse me, when we got into the 90s, technology started coming into play. In 97, I started full-time into what I referred to as grid sampling and variable rate. And then all of a sudden we got automatic steering. And then all of a sudden we got, these new technologies started coming into play. And now there is, I'll call it a coolness about agriculture, because there's technology opportunities there. Is that something that helps draw those non-agricultural people into it? That, and to your point that you made when we were talking, women are becoming the primary farmer, just the farm wife that helps the husband farm. They're the farmer. And I think that's fantastic, because when I came out of school, I had my first job, I only had one female chemical rep. Yep. And when I moved to Michigan, probably had a half dozen of them. And then it's just exploded since then. And they're great reps. And now we're seeing them to be great farmers. I mean, I had a dairy that I used to service that they only had women milk the cows, because they were gentler and got more milk out of them. So how do you see that, all coming together with the technology, the next generation, and then again, even pulling more women into the industry?
Oh, wow. That's a great, wonderful area. Well, let me just say, I think there's room for everybody in agriculture, including production ag, which is where I think we've largely been focused here.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm dating myself here, but my second year in high school was when FFA allowed women in. Can you imagine? I mean, Women are so prevalent in FFA today. I can't even
Yes.
imagine, but I lived it. I saw it when they first came in. And to be sure, some were more quiet, reserved because this is new. They'd not been in this. And others kicked our butts on leadership contests and record keeping. So there is room, and there should have been room, and there always will be room for that. In fact, just a sidebar, we at NASDA, along with a lot of the other ag groups around the world, including DC, are celebrating this year as the International Year of the Woman Farmer. And we don't stop at farming. It can be accountants, lawyers, it can be a lobbyist in DC, it can be a young lady on the Hill, it can be anybody, but celebrating this diversity that is so rich. I think of my mom and dad, what a team they were. Dad was out doing the crops and the critters. Mom was taking care of the books and the marketing. Both were important, both were essential. So I do think we've got to do it. Just a statistic that's interesting. Today, FFA in the US, 55% or thereabouts of the members are young men. But in the officer ranks, 60 to 65% are women. They've figured out that there's leadership potential and they get after it. And I think we all know that women tend to mature a little faster than men, loosely spoken. Well, good for them. Here's an opportunity to bring them around. But oh my gosh, we have got to embrace all of them. And I think around the world where differences are still more stark.
Yes.
Women are the marketer, they are the producer, they are the tiller of the soil. I don't know what the guys are doing. Maybe they're pontificating politics in said country. But we've got to bring greater acknowledgement, and we are, about the role of women. And I am an enormous fan of that and always have been. Because there's room for everybody. And by golly, we need more and more and more and more to do that. Yes. I've known women that drive the farmer. Some are the computer experts on the farm. Some do traditionally the books because they may be rearing children. Okay. Sometimes it flips. Dad does that. Mom's doing something else. Whatever the model, I think there's room for that. But we've got to be continuing to embrace and welcome women, and for that matter, other minorities and whoever wants to go farm or be a lawyer or accountant or be in this industry. Oh, we're so rich as a result of it.
Absolutely. And I think you kicked off a very primary aspect of agriculture I don't think people think about. When you talk about farming, you talk about being in the field, being in the feedlot or the hog building, or that production mentality. And there are some that do want to be a part of that. But it goes back to all of the things that you just talked about. Because in today's world, we're very digital. We're now very technologically oriented. Even in agriculture, people don't want to think about it in that manner, but we are. And so when you look at, I'll use my son as the example. He wanted to be in computers. He wanted to be in IT. And I'm like, you need to be in agriculture. And he's like, why? What about IT there? And I'm like, cybersecurity. A farmer, you talk about some of these farmers getting bigger and bigger and bigger, now have to have their own IT department, because guess what? If you don't have those tractors, combines, all of the equipment connected to the internet so that it feeds the data and the information back and forth through the cloud, you're almost at a standstill in today's world. So cybersecurity and IT become paramount in an operation today.
Oh, the number of careers in agriculture is just astounding. Don't go look somewhere else and think, oh, all the really cool jobs are over there. No.
Oh, no.
Anything that might be fun, cool, sexy, rewarding, monetization, it's all found in agriculture. And something you just mentioned, and at the risk of opening a huge new issue, we've got to keep after this immigration thing. I'm telling you what, we need laborers.
Yes.
Our farmers are crying the blues, and I'll speak we all know that the guest worker program is operating. It needs improvements, and those are being made. So the seasonal labor, like picking fruits, vegetables, and that kind of thing, very important. But oh boy, some of these dairy farmers are crying the blues because they can't get people and guest workers. They may be year round if we can get that status.
Yep.
But workers from other countries are incredible, and they're so appreciative of the chance to earn a decent wage, which is going to be oftentimes double what they may get back in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And they take great care of the livestock or the equipment.
Yes.
I remember when my twin brother and I had a detasseling seed corn operation. We were very successful at that, and that was a day when you could recruit all the kids your age from 13 to 19, and you could get plenty, and we did. There was a crew, there were always a crews of Mexicans. Wow, could those people work?
Yes.
Man, I thought we were
Yes.
pretty good. They put us to shame in their work ethic. And I think the same could be said in so many other industries, whether
Yes.
it is dairy or pork or poultry. There's
Yes.
a nurturing, a caring. So we're working very hard at NASDA, as is all of industry, in bringing more guest workers for not only seasonal but year round, because we're desperate for them. Desperate for them.
Yes.
So, Ted, this brings up one question then. So, because we do have a worker shortage, there is a lot of technology being invented to try and replace the workers. So, if you look at apple orchards, there are floating drones that will go up and using AI technology. And Dave, you touched on tech here just a second ago. Technology in theory is supplementing, replacing a lot of the manual labor need. Where do you see, and I talk about AI a lot at presentations, from a AI technology perspective, I think there's great opportunity. From a AI societal use, there's tremendous risk. We do not have the guardrails on asking AI questions, getting answers. I think from a societal perspective, we don't have a handle on AI. Technology, I think, great opportunity. What are your thoughts on AI from agriculture and now swing it into society? I have pretty strong views of it. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I can prove most people wrong.
Well, I'll put it down to 3 words and then +2. Bring it on are the 3 words, and then with guardrails. Now, guardrails, I don't want to be too heavy. Big brother and government can both destroy and enhance these things. But let me explain what I mean. We have seen the incredible benefits of technology. Brother Tom on the farm have had a precision planting dealership or equipment. What that has brought has been untold yield improvements, just because you get the doggone kernel placed exactly right, not close, exactly right. And then I've been to orchards where they're redoing blueberries and the apple trees look differently, so you can bring in the technologies to harvest those. I say bring those on because it brings costs down, which means food can be purchased at a more affordable rate, and maybe there's that greater profit margin in that for the farmer. We cannot forget that. That said, the guardrails, I just want to be reminding that we can't just go racing pell-mell without taking care of data protection. Farmers are pretty much understanding now that I'll use that piece of equipment, but by golly, the data better be mine, or if it's going to even be aggregated with everybody else so that my data is not known, but it's aggregated, I got to have permission. And then look at the hackers, my goodness. So with the right guardrails to protect individual data, systematic data, government data, quality data, all of these kinds of things, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. Look at the innovation. My gosh, U.S. agriculture is probably the epitome of that. Big ones: Cyrus McCormick and his reaper, John Deere and his plow, the tractors that have come along, hybrid seed corn, chemistries for all the hell they catch. They've been a godsend.
Yes.
The list goes on. And now we're more into data and biological sciences and all that. All of it, I think, can contribute mightily to greater productivity, but
Yes.
quality and safety of food as well. And last time I checked, most people on the earth still need 1 or 2, 3 squares a day, right?
Yep. Yep. So when you talk about the guardrails, I'm gonna switch to a little bit to a different quote unquote technology because you brought it up. Biologicals.
Mm.
The last count I was told, one with confidence, I'll give you two numbers. The other one was just kind of an in passing comment, so I don't know how accurate it is. But today there are the accurate number I was given was 2,400 biological companies. In passing, it was 25. And my standing joke when I talk with prospects and clients is if you have a vial in a bathtub, you can be a biological company today.
Right.
I'm kind of like you. I don't want government regulation. But what are we going to do to enforcing standards? What does that look like? Because, I mean, we all know that, there's bad actors in every industry.
Right.
How much snake oil is actually out there because somebody can?
Yeah.
And I think personally, I think the biologicals are probably a much longer play than a lot of other things out there. Because I refer to biologicals as manure in a jug. Because we used to put biologicals, kind of got like we talked about earlier. We're going back to when you and I were growing up. And we had corn and soybeans and wheat, and we had livestock, and we spread the manure on those fields that, oh, by the way, they have biologicals in them. They have the microbes in them that helped us in our crops. And so we had that circular. Well, we don't have that now. Not as many livestock operations go and put manure across big acres. So now these are opportunities to get back and getting those microbes repopulated. So how do we really look at creating a standard that gets the chaff out of there and we get the wheat of this industry?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you raise that because many of those, not all of them, of course, but many of those companies find their way to NASDA because they would love to have access to our members. And I don't blame them. If you're talking to I'll loosely say the chief agricultural officer of a state, happens to be government, they can be a purveyor of your product and your brand and so forth. I get it.
Yep.
I was in sales and marketing once. Well, here's my answer to them. First, I congratulate them for taking the risk and diving into innovation, no matter what it looks like. Fantastic. We need more of that. The next thing I say is, no, I am not going to endorse you, but we'd love to talk to you again when you show us that you've got at least 2 or 3 years of replicated field trials at a university research farm. There's more and more private research farms that are ethical and have proven their moxie. So let's do that and go prove it. Imagine that's why Abraham Lincoln created the experiment, the Department of Ag is to go test. And that's what we've done with hybrid seed corn. That's what we've done with chemistries. Welcome to the world of testing and proving that your product works.
Yes.
So dive in. Now, I know that means capital, but come on, don't tell me you're going to create an invention and then come out and say, this is the best mousetrap you've ever seen. No. We've been down that road. You called it snake oil salesman. I don't like to call it that because I want to encourage people to innovate, but they've got to prove it. They've got to prove it. So if they've got to get the funds to prove that it works, and then it's just a matter of getting farmers to try it. And welcome to the world of farming.
Yes.
If you don't have the prowess to do the research, get it in field trials, private, public, or both, and then have farmers try it with a technical support organization, then you probably shouldn't be in the business. So we're going to see exactly what happened. Remember when ag chemical companies, there were dozens and dozens, not hundreds and thousands, but dozens and dozens.
Yes.
Well, we're down to far fewer because some made it, some could grow, some didn't. Some struck it big with their product line, others didn't. And we've got to see the same from the biologicals because there's no secret sauce there. It either works or doesn't. And time and trials have to prove that.
Yep. Yep.
But I'm no less excited about it.
Oh no!
I tell you, we try 2 or 3 on our farm, and we're thinking a couple of them have got the goods.
Yes.
That they're working, and we are playing into and living that promise to ourselves of regenerative ag. Less fertilizer because of additional biological. Magic, baby, bring it on.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Yes. That's all for this episode of Vision Tech Perspectives. Join us next time as we continue our conversation with Ted McKinney on today's ag industry and trade. Have a great day.